Well, greetings and welcome to Biblical Counseling 3307, the essential qualities of biblical counseling, essential qualities of a biblical counselor. This is the fifth year that I've been teaching at ABU, and I have taught, I think, 7 different biblical counseling classes, but this is not one of them, so I'll be going through this for the first time along with you. And as they say, the teacher often learns more than the students, so I'm looking forward to this pursuit of holiness that we're going to be doing together. I believe I know most of you. You've had classes with me before, but I think there are 1 or 2 that have not. So I'll still introduce myself. You guys have heard this before, but I was born in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. You can put this part on double speed if you want. And was raised in a Southern Baptist church, gave my life to Christ at the age of 8. Followed my father's footsteps and went to Georgia Tech. He did not go to Georgia Tech, although he grew up in Atlanta. But he did get an electrical engineering degree, as did I, and I was lured here with a defense contractor known as Harris Corporation at the time, now known as L3 Harris Corporation. Had a 35-year career there. Met my wife not at Harris, although she also was an engineer at Harris, but we met on the volleyball court. A mutual friend invited both of us to play in the county leagues in 1985. We began dating and got engaged in 1986. Our pastor used a set of videotapes called Before You Say I Do, which had Norm Wright talking on communications, Tim and Beverly LaHaye talking about the sexual relationships, singular, in marriage, and Larry Burkett talking about finances in marriage. And then we got married in 1987. All of those guys made a huge impression on us. Larry Burkett in particular did for me. I went on to be trained to be a budget counselor or financial counselor using biblical principles to help people with their finances. And went on to become a trainer in 1991, a seminar instructor, and training others how to do financial counseling. It was Larry Burkett who introduced me to the Association of Certified Biblical Counselors back in 1991. He invited the executive director, who was Howard Eyrick, to come to a 1-day crash course in biblical counseling. Fell in love with the idea. It was very consistent with Larry Burkett's approach of using the Bible to help people solve financial and material problems. But it wasn't until 2004, about 13 years later, after all being busy teaching seminars around the country and counseling a number of people, involved in my church, working a full-time job, raising 3 kids. It was a busy time of life. But by 2004, I started attending biblical counseling training classes, got certified as a biblical counselor, which is what Brady Blevins has said qualifies me to be able to teach these classes. I got that certification in 2010, and by 2015 we had developed a biblical counseling training center at our church. My connection with Arlington Baptist University goes back to my daughter Jacqueline, who was looking for a school that had good volleyball and had biblical counseling of the type that we love. And Arlington is what she found. Even though we live in Florida, she went all the way out to Texas to go to school. My daughter, her younger sister, 2 years younger, Jessica, followed in her footsteps, and for 2 years they both played volleyball at Arlington. Jessica was a business major at Arlington. And when Jacqueline graduated, COVID hit. She decided to go to another university to close out her junior and senior year. But this is the fall of 2019 Arlington team, a Final Four team. Jacqueline is over here on your left. Jacqueline is over there on the right. They are the 2 6-footers on either end of the picture. And those are fond memories those days. And since I've been at this 5 years, that means all of these girls have graduated and moved on, and none of you were likely here except one. I know at least Kara, that you're still trudging along, getting this degree done one step at a time, and I'm very proud of you for doing that. So you knew Jacqueline, and you might have known Jessica as well. But most of you have not. This all seems like ancient history to you since it's 5 years ago. As usual, all of the biblical counseling classes we teach emphasize the 3 things that make biblical counseling unique. the sufficiency of Scripture to solve all problems that have to do with life and godliness, the biblical approach to understanding progressive sanctification, the part that we play versus the Holy Spirit and God playing in our becoming more Christ-like over time, and the Bible's instructions on how to go about growing and changing. So, for this class, this first video, as always, is going over the syllabus. This course is designed to help you, the student, understand the Christ-like character and qualities that we expect in a counselor. Think, in short, this class is to get the log out of your own eye so you're able to help people get the specks out of theirs. This course will also provide an environment for the counselor's self-examination. That's you. You are the counselor. In present and future growth, both in his or her personal walk with Jesus Christ as well as a skilled biblical counselor. We will always use the Bible as a textbook in all our biblical counseling classes. It only makes sense. It is biblical. And we only have one textbook besides the Bible, and unfortunately it is not available in ebook, so you'll need to go buy this book. It is by Jerry Bridges. It is called The Pursuit of Holiness. Please order it quickly so that you may read the first chapter. Actually, this first assignment is to read the preface, the acknowledgments, and the introduction to the study section in the back. The first couple of chapters will be after that. Course goals. What we're going to try to accomplish here is what I am going to do for you is to help you identify personal struggles that must be addressed in the life of a biblical counselor and provide an opportunity for you to develop a plan of action to deal with some of the issues which biblical counselors face personally, and to nurture an environment that's conducive to appropriate transparency for you to deal honestly with issues that may hinder your ministry as a biblical counselor. In other words, we're going to try to learn how to live like a Christian and fix those things in our lives that aren't in line with that at this point. So, our goals are for you to be able to, by the time you finish this course, to learn to effectively deal with areas that you personally struggle with, to gain an understanding of how to develop a course of study to facilitate change in your life, and to appropriately disclose an area of personal struggle and document your progress towards solving that struggle throughout the semester. Our instruction objectives. These are things you will be able to do, and you'll demonstrate them to me through quizzes and papers and discussions and discussion boards and reports and journaling. One, I want to discuss each of the 9 parts of the fruits of the Spirit that are listed in Galatians and have you evaluate your life against each of those 9 fruits of the Spirit. There'll be 1 a week, plus 1 week will double up to get 9 of them into 8 weeks. Second, to practice accountability in the areas of 3 things: physical exercise, spiritual practices, and financial stewardship. I'd like to get all of those areas under control in your life, and you'll be logging how you're doing and submitting those to me. And then last, to examine how the Lord has been working in your life through the years, and to bring those to salvation if you're not saved, and to help you grow through this process of sanctification. So, in short, we're going to create a life history document and an analysis of that life history to show where God is working in your life. The student goal indicators for this class, there are 3 of the 6 that the university has for biblical competency. First, of BC1, a foundational understanding of biblical facts and principles. BC number 4, an overt understanding of the Christian worldview and how it differs from other worldviews. And BC 5, the ability to relate biblical principles in real-life situations. Then spiritually, we have some goals there too that line up with the university goals. SG1 is developing habits of personal and corporate worship. And SG4 are applying biblical principles to real-life problems. Then we have some some academic excellence goals, or indicators rather, goal indicators. AE1, acquiring basic knowledge in a broad base of subjects. AE4, learning to communicate through your thoughts and ideas effectively. AE5, developing methods of study and research that lead to lifelong learning. And then 2 personal development goals. Number 4, recognizing the importance of self-discipline and service. And PD5, applying knowledge and experience for a commitment to lifelong ministry. Then there are a number of School of Ministry program outcomes that this class lines up with. And since it's a biblical counseling class, there's a lot of those. PO1 is to articulate a philosophy of counseling that is rooted in the idea that Scripture is inspired by God and is sufficient to help equip any man or woman of God in all manners pertaining to life and godliness. Second, to offer counsel through the teaching of biblical truths as they are mined from the Scriptures through proper Bible study methods. Number 3, to develop the idea that man's deepest problem is his own rebellion against God and his desire to please himself at the expense of loving God and putting God first and putting your neighbor first. Number 4, to develop a plan of action for the counselee that will enable them to grow into Christ-likeness as they put off the old man and are renewed in the spirit of their minds and put on the new man and train themselves in righteousness. And number 6, to articulate the idea that man is both a material and immaterial being. That is a theology of dichotomy. Created in God's image for His glory. Physiology is a component of that, and it influences but does not determine a person's life, and therefore counsel that is truly biblical will address the physiological, the material part of man as well as the spiritual part, which is why you'll see we have some accountability in spiritual areas, but also in some physical areas like exercises and finances. So the course requirements and assignments are as follows. But first let me say that everything you turn in needs to be grammatically correct and spell checked. This isn't a high school English class. You've already completed that. Hopefully you've completed your freshman English class as well, so your writing skills are expected to be at a college level. All assignments are due at 11:59 p.m. on Saturdays with 2 exceptions. One exception is the discussion boards. You need to get those done by Thursday night so your classmates have an opportunity to interact with what you've written by Saturday night. And exception number 2 is the last week of class, which ends on a Friday, so that week will be a 6-day week instead of a 7-day week. And unfortunately, as always happens, that's a little heavier week on the assignments, so you'll need to work ahead around week 6 or 7 to try to get everything done that's due in week 8. I do accept late work, but there is a 10% penalty per day for work that's turned in late. Those are useless losses. So let me encourage you to make a goal right now, especially those of you that have had classes with me before and struggled with turning things in on time. Let this class in this half of the semester be the one where you are not late on a single assignment. Try to get them in a day early so that you have some margin. No work will be accepted after 10 days. You'll get a 0 at that point. Your participation in class is expected, especially in the discussion boards. I don't know how many people lose half their credit by writing a nice long response but not even taking the time to read and write a short response to someone else's work. So let that be a goal for you also. You will not forget to interact with other students in this discussion board. That's why they call it discussion. Grading policy. We've got journaling every single week. So that's 8 opportunities at 25 points each. That's a total of 200 points. That's 20% of your grade. We have a weekly spiritual evaluation against the fruits of the Spirit. There's 8 of those, so that's 200 points. That's 20% of your grade. There's a weekly discussion board That is worth 10% of your grade, so each of those are 12.5 points each week. Again, there's 8 of those. Then there is a weekly exercise, financial, and spiritual accountability report that is worth 200 points. So that's 25 points each. The spiritual report is half of that, so that is 12.5 points. And then the exercise and the financial are half again of that, so that's 6.25 points for each of those. You'll see that written in the assignments if that's not clear. And then last, there is a life mission statement and personal history. You'll submit a draft of that at week 4. I will spend time reading all of that and give you some feedback on how to beef it up for the final submission. So the final should be pretty easy if you just follow the instructions that I write in the rubric. Here's what the schedule looks like. Every single week there's journaling, the spiritual evaluation, the discussion board, the accountability report. Then the life mission project, you submit your first draft on week 4 and the final version on week 8. So there's 4 things to do every single week, except those 2 weeks there's 5 things to do. So that's pretty close to working on turning something in every other day throughout the semester. And this is the number of points that are available to grab each week, 87.5 every week, except that 4th and 8th week where you have an extra 150 on top of that. All of that adds up to 1,000, and you can see those are the due dates for each of the 8 weeks, culminating on March the 14th at the end of Block C of this online segment. As other classes you've had with me, the format's going to be that we do a video each week tailored to your work, looking at last week's assignments, results, and this week's assignments coming up, and a sneak peek at the following week. So every time we meet, we'll look at those 3 weeks of assignments. There's reading notes. My predecessor, Sam Johns, did a good job of writing up his lecture notes, so that's part of your reading assignment every week. And then, of course, The Pursuit of Holiness by Jerry Bridges. Occasionally there may, I don't know of any right now, but I may sneak some in, be some other resources from ACBC certified teachers, counselors, and authors. Every week, as I mentioned before, a journal, an evaluation, a discussion, and an accountability report, all 4 of those things every single week. And then the life mission statement and personal history at week 4 and week 8. It's that simple. For the journal, most of you have journaled for me before, so you know I'm kind of picky about the formats. And I want to know the date and time that you completed the reading, or watching or listening. The title of the book, so important. Sometimes you guys leave that out and I don't know what you're referencing to when I read the document. And then the 3 personal application questions. What are the key points of the scripture? And by the way, you can use the lecture reading notes that Sam has put together to capture some of that more quickly and easily. How do these principles apply in my situation generally, and then what specifically am I going to do to change as a result? And most of you know if I'm looking for specifics, not just that I'm going to pray more, but I'm going to get up 10 minutes early 3 days a week. I'm going to log my prayers. I'm going to schedule some time to review them on Saturdays. Be very specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound in describing the changes you're going to make in your life. Journal on each and everything that you read separately. So, for example, there's 3 different things to read in this first assignment, so I expect to see 3 full journal entries with all of those questions answered for each reading. So, for this week, as usual, you got to complete the plagiarism exam and the integrity acknowledgement. This week's 3 readings are the Week 1 lecture notes that Sam Johns wrote for us, Introduction to the Essential Qualities of a Biblical Counselor, and the Fruits of the Spirit. I would like for you to read the foreword and the preface of Jerry Bridges' book, The Pursuit of Holiness. as well as the study guide, which is on page 131 in the back of the book. Just read the before you begin page and a half, because we are going to be reading the book chapters in the book and doing the study guides in the back. Complete your journal, your eval, the discussion, and the accountability report. So let's talk about these weekly spiritual evaluation papers. So we want to use the 9 parts of the fruits of the Spirit, which are love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance. You'll be doing one of those each week, and I want you to do a brief study on the Greek word that's used for each particular part of the fruit being studied for that week. And if you've had the class that has required you to buy your Bible Logos software, great. Now's the time to use it. It's got the Greek in it and an English description of those Greek words and how they're used. But if you do not have that expensive software, I'd encourage you to get it. It's very powerful and useful, and it's inexpensive. You get a student discount that's pretty steep. But if you still don't want to, here are 3 web pages that can give you similar analysis. One is blueletterbible.org, another is biblehub.com, and another is netbible.org. I encourage you to look at all 3 of those, see which ones you like best. I surveyed the pastoral staff and got 3 different answers from them as to which one was their favorite. So I can't recommend one myself. Then secondly, there's an evaluation as you see this particular fruit of the Spirit, how it is demonstrating in your life. What are your strengths, weaknesses, development needs in that area? So that's what I want you to write about a 2-page report each week doing that Greek analysis. And I have created a rubric for you. Please use the outline of your paper to follow these topic lines in the rubric, excluding the grammar, of course. So you'll have an introduction paragraph that summarizes it. Again, I want you to work like all good research papers on writing a good thesis statement. I have Jeremy Pierre's document on how to write a good thesis statement in the supplemental data on the home page with the modules in the introductory part before Module 1. Then a section on the brief study of the Greek word for, and the first week is going to be the word love, and that's worth 8 points. That's almost half. Then the self-evaluation is also worth 8 points, and then there's a conclusion worth 3 points. So all that adds up to 25 points. Then there's the discussion board. So part of the evaluation criteria for your class is that you're participating in the discussion board. And I'd like you this time to do more than one response. Try to respond to almost everybody else in the class. And when somebody responds to what you wrote, respond back to them. Let's get more of a discussion going. So one of my frustrations with online classes is we don't get to interact very much face-to-face. Not only teacher to student, but student to student. So let's try to all do better in the discussion board and have a real discussion. Post your original response on Thursday, no later than 11:59 p.m. and reply to somebody else by Saturday at 11:59 p.m. And you must respond to a classmate to get credit. In fact, you'll lose half the credit if you don't. Posting to the discussion board is part of every week's assignment. So your original post will be evaluated on the following criteria: that it is a complete response. It's not just some sentence fragments or even just one sentence. Second, that it applies your knowledge. I want to see some evidence that you've actually read the material that shows up there. In fact, if you want to quote the material and cite a page number, that would be even better, more persuasive that I know that you're doing your work. And then support your opinion. Don't just make a declaration of an opinion, but state the reasons why you believe what you believe. And last, responding to your classmates should be thoughtful and should be supportive or expanding on what they've already said, or perhaps even respectfully refuting what they've said with a different opinion. to probe your teammates' response. Please go way beyond just the "me too, loved what you said, I'm glad you said what I said," those kinds of things. Show some real critical thinking. So, as usual, we have the Getting to Know You section where you will give us your name and a short biography about yourself, including family information, what profession you're in or headed towards, what's your major here at Arlington Baptist University, how did you find Arlington Baptist University, why are you in this particular class, what do you hope to learn out of this class. And prior to reading any of these course materials, what do you think are the essential characteristics of a good biblical counselor? And then, after you've read the preface of Jerry Bridges' book, In the Pursuit of Holiness, answer the following questions in the discussion board. Elaborate on Jerry's metaphor that he opens up the preface with about a farmer's need to do his part in farming while relying on God to do his part, and that the pursuit of holiness is similar. There is a God's part, there is a my part. And while equating farming to the pursuit of holiness, what are the spiritual equivalents in this metaphor to the sowing and fertilizing and cultivating that the farmer is doing versus the germinating and the rain and the sunshine and the growing of the plants that God does, that nature does? Second, Jerry Bridges makes this claim in the preface that we Christians greatly enjoy talking about how God provided this in my life, but we are not so ready to talk about our own responsibilities to walk in holiness and make godly choices in our life. Why do you think that is? Why do we love talking about God, what God does, but hesitate to talk about what we do? And is that true for you personally, that you prefer one over the other? And if so, why? So, should be some good discussion. Now, for the exercise, financial, and spiritual accountability reports. I expect you to keep a record of your weekly activity in the area of exercise, finances, and time in the book of Proverbs. You may use an Excel spreadsheet, make your own format, or a Word document if you like, but I need to be able to see what date and time you did some exercise, what exercise you did, how long you did it for. If you've got a smartwatch that's got more than that and you want to tell me how many calories you burned or whatever, that's fine. If you're trying to lose weight, you want to track your weight in there, you can do that as well. But at a minimum, I want to see that you're working out at least 3 times a week for at least 30 minutes with an acceptable type of exercise that we'll talk about in a moment. So to receive full credit each week, you've got to participate in some form of physical exercise 3 times a week for 30 minutes for all 8 weeks. So acceptable exercises could be jogging, fast-paced walking, swimming, cycling, aerobics, tennis, volleyball. Some of you are athletes. You're going to go to practice and be able to claim that. That's certainly good. Rowing machine, CrossFit, high-intensity interval training, weight training, all of those are acceptable, but it's just got to be at least 30 minutes, keeping your heart rate about 120 or above during that time. If you're in doubt about the type of exercise you're doing, just shoot me an email or a text. Let me know what you're doing and I'll let you know that's okay. Submit what you have completed every single Saturday night at 11:59. And please note, if you do have a physical condition that prevents you from being able to do that, let me know. I'm not going to ask for a doctor's note. I'll just take your word for it. But you can certainly list a less strenuous exercise that is within your limits if that is the case. Financial accountability report. You are encouraged to practice sound money management. To achieve this, I'm going to ask you to submit a budget this week. So by this Saturday, you need to fill out the monthly income and expenses form, and I've posted one on Canvas, and I've included a link to the one that Crown Financial Ministries uses and that I have used for decades with hundreds of families to document their budgets. And then the subsequent 7 weeks, you will submit spending reports that show what income came in and what spending you did. And I have created a little form for analyzing that each week in Excel. They're also due on Saturday. Can't see this very well here, but you can download it from either the link from Crown or the version of it, the PDF version that I put out there. This is the monthly income and expenses form, and it breaks a budget down into 12 major categories. There's some extra categories for investments and child care that not everybody has, but everybody does have typically those other 12 categories. So I want to see a balanced budget for how money comes in each month and goes out each month. And I realize sometimes things are bi-weekly or twice a year. Just do the math to translate that to monthly. If you're paid bi-weekly, multiply your bi-weekly check by 26, divide by 12, that'll give you the monthly number. If you pay insurance twice a year, add those two together, divide it by 12, that's your monthly number. So translate everything to monthly on the form. If you have any questions, let me know. I can do these forms in my sleep, so I'd be happy to help you. Then I just created this financial accountability report. I want to know the date, kind of the starting balance of what finances you have. Add up your checking account, savings account, just your liquid cash, cash that's in your pocket, and just put that one total number. I don't need to know what's coming from checking or credit cards or debit cards or whatever. But I do put a place where that spending came out in the account, because sometimes that's good to know. And then what category that's in. That comes from that monthly income and expenses form that I showed you on the previous page. And then a brief description of it. I went to the grocery store, I went to McDonald's, I paid Allstate my insurance, I went to Shell, got gas, I used Venmo to pay back a friend. So that will describe all of those things, and you can then keep a running balance of making sure you don't spend more than you make, which is called going into debt. So 7 weeks, I'll be looking over your shoulder, holding you accountable to being a good steward of your finances. Now, for the spiritual accountability report, you're encouraged to read one chapter in Proverbs every day of the month, and just use the day of the month, and you've probably heard this before, to determine what chapter it is. You'll then submit a one-page paper presenting one of the Proverbs or a passage in one of the Proverbs that you have read from the previous week. Submit it every Saturday. For example, if today is January 20th, when you're watching this, you would need to read Proverbs 20 for today. And then choose a verse or section of verses from Proverbs 20 and write that one-page paper express. So you'll have 7 chapters to choose from. And you're going to be logging that you read one every single day. And doing that one-page write-up on one of them. So that's all the weekly things you'll be doing. Now let's look at this larger project, which is worth 30% of your grade, which is your life mission statement and your personal history. So I want you to write a life mission statement. Now, if you're married, make this, and you have kids, make this your mission statement for your family. So you may want to work with your spouse to come up with this. You're encouraged to develop your mission statement also by basing it on a life verse. Is there a verse or passage of verses that are driving this mission that's driving your life? Now, you're also required, and this is the larger part of the assignment, to write a history of your life and all of the major events that have happened since your earliest memory to the present. This might include where you were born, your parental circumstances, i.e. if they were divorced or one of them died, remarried, step-parents, half-brothers and sisters, those kinds of things. When you got saved, what cities you might have moved to, at what age, any major losses that you had, marriage or divorce that you've been involved in, birth of children, tragic events that changed your life, etc. And to help jog your memory, it's good to have this in a chronological order. So give the year that something happened, and if possible, if you can remember the month or the season. I know it was the fall of '97 that this happened. Then using those events as a guide, discuss how these events have impacted you and how you see God using these events to shape you and perfect you and make you more Christ-like. In other words, how has God used these things to either bring you to salvation or to grow you in your sanctification in life? So here's a suggested outline. There'll be a rubric for you to follow when you get there. There'll be an introduction, there'll be a list of major events, and I would like you to do those in 5-year segments so that it's not just one big long narrative, but paragraphs that are grouped around age 1 to 5, age 6 to 10, 11, 15, 16 to 20, etc., to however old you are. If you're over 30, you might want to do decades at a time, starting about there. And then write about all the positive things that have happened in those time frames, like salvation, births of siblings, marriage, weddings, etc., and then negative things as well, parental divorce or death of a loved one, abuse that may have happened in your life. And then what you see God doing in and through your life in the future, especially as it lines up with this mission statement that you're writing. So you may not be able to see exactly how God is using these things in your life, and that's okay. Just go ahead and report it. It is, and just state that. You know, here's a terrible thing that happened, and right now I haven't seen anything good that's come out of that. It is expected that the document may be painful for some of you, so you might want to start early so you can be absorbing that over a longer period of time than just cramming it into the last week of the due date. If you need to speak with me about this to get some better clarity about how to document it, I'm happy to be a sounding board for you as well. So that's it. That's all of week 1's assignments and a brief look at the large assignment that's not due till week 4. Next week, you'll be reading lecture number 2, The Holiness is for You, which is the name of chapter 1. And the holiness of God, which is the name of chapter 2. So you're doing 2 chapters in the pursuit of holiness. Because again, these little half semesters make us read things a little faster. So you'll be reading the lecture notes, and then chapter 1, Holiness is for You, chapter 2, The Holiness of God, and from the study guide, both that Holiness for You section covers both chapters. Then journaling, evaluating, discussing, accountability. For the discussion board, we ask that you read the study guide and look at, in particular, question number 3 in the study guide. Look up the following verses and meditate on them about what each one says about God's holiness. Which of these verses are the most meaningful to you, and explain why. There's passages from Exodus, Leviticus, Psalms, Isaiah, and 1 Peter to choose from. So there's 5 of them. Remember to thoughtfully respond to your classmates as they discuss the same thing. Welcome aboard as we go study. This title is wrong. I can fix that by hitting the home key. Home. The Essential Qualities of a Biblical Counselor, BC3307. God bless you. Don't hesitate to text or call or send me an email. And I'm here to help. God bless you.